But I want to return in the meantime to that Chinese military parade and that extraordinary photo of Dan Andrews with the axis of evil. Joining me is Peter Jennings from Strategic Analysis Australia. Peter, thanks for your time. I've got to get your reaction. What did you make of that photo of Dan Andrews today with Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un?
Well, he'll be known forever by the company he keeps, Danica, and it was some pretty unpleasant company. You know, these are the authoritarian rulers around the world. These are the torturers. These are the people who bully their own populations. And, of course, they were all there in Beijing to celebrate a festival of Chinese military strength, telling the rest of the world that we are now here in strength and we're coming to dominate you and to supplant the role of the United States and the democracies. And Dan Andrews wants to be associated with that. I find it quite remarkable. Who's advising this guy? You know, what cause does he think he's advancing by doing this? So I think it was extremely disappointing, but people will make their own judgments, and I suspect it will universally be a very negative judgment about his choice to be there at a celebration of Chinese militarism with a whole bunch of very unpleasant authoritarian rulers.
Well, how would China view his attendance and him standing in that photo? Would they see it as the ultimate propaganda gift?
Oh, probably a second or third tier propaganda gift. I mean, he is what Vladimir Lenin used to call a useful idiot, someone who is lending weight to support a cause which I think he can't possibly have a clear understanding of. And it was a pretty select audience, let's be clear about this. This was a very unlovely collection of political leaders from around the world. A handful of leaders from Southeast Asia, which I think should be ringing warning bells in Australia, especially President Prabowo of Indonesia. That really tells us that, you know, there's a lot of work we need to do in our region to sort of strengthen the position of the democracies and of our alliance relationships. So China would have regarded the presence of any sort of former senior Australian politician as being a positive, something that says, look, here are people who endorse what we do. But, you know, frankly, our own government had the sense to stay away. Our ambassador had the sense to stay away. That's really what Dan Andrews should have done as well.
Oh, look, I completely agree. It was a complete embarrassment. Look, we saw China really show off its military might today. What was the true aims of this so-called Victory Day parade? What message are they trying to send to the West?
Well, I think it's always worth remembering that their domestic audience is the most important one from the Communist Party, and we should also understand that the People's Liberation Army, which also covers their Navy and their Air Force, is the military of the Communist Party. It's not the military of the Chinese state. So message number one to the Chinese people is to say we're in charge and don't forget it. This is Chairman Mao's saying power flows from the barrel of the gun, and Xi Jinping is showing that to his own people. The message to the wider world is to say, look at our strength. You know, we're no longer hiding our international position. We're showing that we want to be the dominant power, not just in the Indo-Pacific, but actually in the world. Here we come. And, you know, my view is that we should take some sort of discount factor to some of this equipment. A lot of it looked like stuff that was, you know, altogether too neatly painted, sort of bobbling around on the backs of trucks. I mean, who knows what the real military capability is? But it's a show of strength. It's an expression of China's position in the international environment and a statement to say that, you know, we intend to rule by force if the democracies are silly enough to let China get away with that.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, it was all pomp and ceremony today, and front and centre of that was Dan Andrews. Peter Jennings, we've got to leave it there. Good to catch up with you. Thanks so much for joining me on the show this evening.